Hello, Fair Housing Insiders. Today we are talking about fair housing and citizenship, a really important topic. Make sure you stick around because we're going to be answering the question, can you deny an applicant because they are not a citizen? Let's dive in. Hello, housing providers and property managers. Thanks for joining us again on another episode of the Fair Housing Insiders. Today, we're going to be focusing on fair housing and citizenship, and can you deny an applicant based on their citizenship status? Today, we have with us Leslie Tucker, a fair housing attorney. Leslie, thanks so much for joining us again.
Yeah, glad to be here. Thanks, Michael.
Yeah, I know this is a pretty complicated topic and currently extremely relevant, so I really thank you for guiding us through this today. So let's jump in now. Now, the Fair Housing Act is obviously a U.S. law. So does that mean it only applies to U.S. citizens?
No, actually, that is a misconception. The Fair Housing Act applies to every person in the United States, whether they are a citizen or not. Immigration status has nothing to do with whether someone has fair housing protections under the Fair Housing Act. Now, immigration status is not a protected category explicitly under the Federal Fair Housing Act, although be aware in some states it is under the State Fair Housing Act. But national origin is a protected class under the Federal Fair Housing Act. And discriminating against an applicant or even making specific inquiries about immigration status for some properties can be viewed as a violation of someone's national origin rights.
Wow. Okay. All right. So it sounds like you can't directly ask about someone's immigration status. So if I got that right. So help me out here. What can you ask on an application to ensure that they're meeting your criteria?
Well, there's a different standard between federally subsidized properties and non-subsidized properties when it comes to kind of inquiring into immigration status. For subsidized properties, we're talking about properties that receive funding from HUD or USDA. Individuals can be non-citizens, but they have to have legal immigration status in order to be eligible to receive federal financial assistance. So that means generally properties that receive HUD funds or under the Rural Development Program or housing authorities that administer housing choice vouchers, they have to ask, they have to inquire into someone's immigration status in order to know if they're eligible to receive this type of assistance. Contrast that with conventional properties, market rate properties, properties that don't receive any financial assistance from the government, from the federal government. There's a different standard. Okay, these types of housing providers should not be asking about immigration status, as again, you don't need to be a U.S. citizen to have fair housing rights and to be housed in this country. However, a housing provider can ask questions to ensure that the applicant meets their criteria. This almost always involves obtaining some kind of identification documents, whether that's a birth certificate, driver's license, some kind of legal documentation of someone's identity. It often usually involves getting an applicant's social security number or their individual taxpayer identification number, their ITIN. Either is fine. And typically you need those, one of the two, in order to screen them for their credit and their criminal history. So requiring that is fine. You may also ask for proof of income and employment, also, which is fine. And then if an applicant can't or won't comply with those requirements, then they don't meet your criteria.
Interesting. I'd imagine the real pitfall that some communities could fall into here is the ones that change that screening criteria because maybe they think somebody might not be a citizen. So just to kind of clear that up, I could get in trouble if I say like, oh, I need all this proof of your identification, because in the back of my head, I think you might be maybe you're undocumented or not a citizen, but then I don't ask that of every other applicant. That's going to cause a problem, right?
Well, certainly. I mean, regardless of what your stance on immigration is, remember that as of today, as of the date of this video, immigration status has nothing to do with an individual's housing rights under the Fair Housing Act. You cannot discriminate against someone based on the fact that they are from another country, which is obviously their national origin. So it would be illegal to single someone out based on their appearance, their accent, their language spoken, etc., or to ask different questions of them during the application process than what you're asking, other applicants. So make sure, I guess the point is this: be consistent with your application process and your questions in order to avoid the appearance of discrimination.
Got it. Consistency is the key, like always. And if you want to stay consistent on fair housing matters, then make sure to please subscribe to our video. Make sure you hit that like button, ring that bell for notifications so that you can stay on top of all of these important fair housing topics. Leslie, I can't thank you enough again for joining us today to go through this. This has been another episode of the Fair Housing Insiders with Michael Kaufman and Leslie Tucker. Please come back and see us. Happy training.